Hi, everyone. This is Gary Wilson, and welcome to tonight's uh, live investor agent webinar. And also, again, we often have folks on who've been through the Flipping for Profits program and Rental Profits Without the Pain program. There are other training programs that you all have access to, and some of you have taken advantage of that. Some of you came through other indirect channels, but for the most part, everybody here is a licensee, whether in the U.S. or Canada, and literally coast to coast, California to Maine, and of course Montreal down to Miami. So welcome aboard. Particularly welcome to the new folks who joined us in the last week. A couple of admin items if you are new. If you could please, when you first log in, I see the attendee list. I can see who's on. I don't keep it expanded all the time because it takes up space. But I just want to have you type in a quick message when you log in. Hi, Gary, I can see you and hear your voice, or see my screen and hear my voice. That way I know that everything's working on your end technologically. It does appear that GoToWebinar has solved the problem officially with the lines on the screen. So far, the word tonight is that there's no lines. Last week we had lines for a few moments and they did disappear, which is a whole lot better than the week before. So thank goodness technologically everything's working. Real quick review here. So first off, again, welcome for everybody who's new. And just to give you a brief recap, the way this works is these webinars, of course, are live. They are recorded. So the very next day you get a recording of the webinar. And some of you are hearing this in recording mode because you're not live with us, and that's okay. We understand. But also, the weekly webinars are not necessarily in sync with your course material. You've probably noticed that, and we do discuss that. And the reason is we found it to be more beneficial for you as the students to have it be live, interactive, and also based on your input. You tell me what you want to talk about and we focus on that subject. So for the newer folks, what happens is we're going to get subject matter that's a little bit more advanced than where we are right now, but it's good because you're going to get input from other students. Okay, you're going to hear and see what they're doing, what's working, what activities can be combined to sometimes get better, more meaningful results, all kinds of neat stuff. Also, as a reminder, once you get your access to the membership site, you can go back, and there's probably way over 60, probably close to maybe 70 webinars out there, all recorded, all cataloged by subject matter. So you can download any one you want on your computer. You can strip off the audio, make it MP3. You can get, that's a free app, by the way. You can also get the free app on your phone to watch it on your phone. Just go to your store, your app store, look for GoToWebinar, okay? That way you can watch it on your phone if you happen to be out and about during the day. But also the most important thing is back to the recordings. You have access to all of those prior webinars, and you can look them up by subject matter. So you can focus and dwell on any particular subject you want to, anytime you want, over and over again. And it's yours to keep. You're officially you're in for life, okay? And as such, you should take full advantage of it and benefit. World of material out there, guys. Unbelievable amount of material. So, in any case, real quick review. All right, we just wrapped up a series, not last week, the week before, of all the marketing campaigns. So if you are new, go back to the end of January once you get your access. And as you have time, start listening and watching to all of those prior webinars. We went through all the marketing campaigns. It took several months to do it, but they're all out there. You can see prior versions going back to last fall and last spring, for example. Okay. Also, in the month of January, we went over the introductory sections of the material. So you have access to all that in audio, visual, as well as the printed material. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's jump into what we're going to do tonight. Tonight, I want to just review quickly what we did last week, which is all for Module 1. All right. And Module 1, again, is designed to show you how to create and use the school report, how to access and use melissadata.com, and how to make use of your planning commission website data so that you and your clients can zero laser beam focus on specific types of properties in specific neighborhoods in specific areas. And that's so very important because so many investors are out there trying to use the shotgun approach. They're just trying to have access to anything and everything. Mainly that's on the MLS because that's what most realtors try to provide to them. But as a result of the information you're gaining from this program, you realize that the MLS is only going to provide you at most half of your transactions. And the better you get at it, no more than a third, which means over time, between a half and 2/3 of your transactions will come outside the MLS. Again, it has nothing to do with brokerage. MLS is just simply a tool you get for the privilege of being a licensee. But being a licensee allows you to act as a broker for all kinds of things, whether they're on the MLS or not, including businesses, by the way. A lot of you didn't realize that. So in any case, we give this to you to learn and master so that you can give it to your clients so that they can learn and master. And I'll just do a real quick here. I'm not going to go over this. I just want to remind you. So this is a school report. So if you look at and watch last week's webinar, we described this in detail, how you create it, how you use it. All right. Then we didn't really go into zipcodes.com. It's pretty self-explanatory. But then we went into the melissadata.com. There's one view there. There's another view there. And there's the link, okay, the URL. And then we showed you Planning Commission website data, how you can use it, what's available, and why it's important. Okay, so I want you to review that. If you haven't already, it's already in your material. It's the bulk of Module 1, so you've already got it regardless. You can certainly look at it and spend more time and actually practice it. Really important, guys, that you put into practice what you're learning. In fact, each week there's a homework assignment, and you'll see last week's there was the homework assignment. Use the tools, okay, to zero laser beam focus from your school district down to your zip code, down to your melissadata.com data, which is your carrier routes, the postal service carrier routes, and then validate everything with your Planning Commission website data. Okay, so tonight we're going to start with this, and I apologize for moving up and down. I just want to show you where we were and where we are right now. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going to talk about a little bit more about the neighborhoods and aesthetic qualities, specific characteristics of the type of neighborhoods that you and your investors want to be in. And this is based on years and years of experience, and also examples and surveys from other investors and other investor agents out there in the community, literally coast to coast and country to country, Canada and US at this point. So in any case, once you figure out the areas and you look at the sociographic and demographic data on your Planning Commission websites, at some point you should get out there yourself. And I'm not saying spend a lot of time doing this, but you should definitely get out there, drive around and walk around so that you can make your own battlefield view assessment of the areas that your research told you should be focusing in and your clients should be focusing in. Okay, so what we did is we compiled the information that we've learned over the years and we put it in this format here. And we came up with a grading system, A, B, and C neighborhoods. A is typically your high-end affluent luxury homes. B is predominantly the medium price, mostly middle class people, but medium price neighborhoods. And C is the below middle class. It doesn't mean they're necessarily bad areas. However, as a result of demographics and social graphics and economics, some of the C areas could be a little bit risky. Okay, there's now within each grade, A, B, and C, there actually is plus and minus. So there's C minus, C, and C plus. And just to give you a broad brushstroke here, within the world of C, that's where most of your rentals are going to be. C minus would be more of your government subsidized housing. So what some people commonly refer to as projects. Section 8. In other words, a project was developed in an area that's strictly to be used for subsidized housing, mostly from HUD or Section 8 recipients. Traditional C areas are characterized by still having some individual subsidy housing in there, like individual properties could be made available to Section 8 tenants, for example, or subsidize other subsidy programs. But for the most part, they're regular folks, potentially lower income, okay, but it doesn't mean they're bad people. They just their income levels are lower relative to most society. Okay, C plus is where you're getting closer to middle class areas or medium price home areas. That is, and a lot of times you'll find fewer rentals there, or if you do find rentals, they're maybe a little bit better, mostly single family home rentals mixed in with ownership. Okay, into the B areas. Let's see if we've even got this down here. Yep, we do. Excuse me. With the B areas, let's just go there, and we'll go backwards. You're typically looking, again, B minus, B, and B plus. Okay. Now in the middle B range, you're going to have a lot of flips there, and the reason is if you look at a bell curve, a curve that starts off here, goes up, goes around, and goes back down. At the peak of the bell curve is typically your median price home areas, and we call that the B neighborhoods. A lot of the highest volume of sales will be in these areas, okay, because more people have salary ranges in the range that can allow them to afford these median price homes. Again, you got the higher end and the lower end. On the lower end, you're starting to see a few rentals, okay? At the lower end of the Bs, you're starting to see a few rentals. And also, you might even see a handful, a scattering of some multi-units, right? On the higher end, you're starting to push into the A areas, or what we call the upper middle class or affluent areas, okay? Now, as far as specific price ranges, it actually varies, as you might imagine, from town to town and state to state and province to province. It's actually at the neighborhood level. You literally could have one neighborhood next to another neighborhood, and there will be completely separate grades. C and B minus could literally be butt up right against each other, and so don't be surprised when you see that, particularly in the older, larger cities. Okay, and that's partly due to what we call gentrification. Gentrification is sort of like reclaiming older areas of a city, and basically gentrification means reclaiming and refurbishing and rejuvenate, literally rejuvenate. Okay. In any case, within that range, this is where we believe you should be doing most of your flipping. And I know that you're not going to have the most expensive houses there. You're not going to make big, giant, capital gains. However, it's the safest area to flip in. In other words, these medium price homes, the ranges, are the best areas for flipping homes, hands down, because you're more likely to sell a property for closest to list price and in the shortest amount of time, which obviously is one of our key objectives for our sellers. Help the flippers sell their property closest to list price in the shortest amount of time. And one sure way we can help them accomplish that is to show them the data from the school report, from Melissa data, and from your demographics, your planning commission websites. Show them that so they can see, statistically, mathematically, every other way, that this is the area to do your flipping. All right. I'm not saying you can't flip affluent homes. You certainly can. But the reality is there's far fewer of them that will be available at such a price that your client can purchase and remodel and sell for a profit. There's just not that many opportunities out there. Several years ago, 10 years ago around Detroit, people literally were just walking away from their affluent homes because they dropped by as much as 2/3 in value, and it just wasn't worth them to keep it. In any case, back to this. Mainly B areas are going to be for your flipping. Again, on the B minuses, you might see a few possible rental opportunities. All right. The C areas, mostly where all of your rentals are going to be. But in the C plus, you absolutely can flip homes there. In middle ground C, you can obviously flip homes there too. And I know because I've actually done it. All right. So the bottom line is this: most of your investing activities are going to be in the C areas, mainly for rentals, and in the B areas, mainly for flipping. Back up here in the A areas, there's not going to be much out there for you. Okay. It's just a mathematical certainty that on a percentage basis, fewer affluent homes, fewer luxury homes go into foreclosure, for example. Okay, and even if they're not going into foreclosure, they're generally not going to be worn down to a level that your investors can buy them at and leave enough room for remodeling and for profit. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It actually does, and we've done it. But I've also seen people get burned in this area. And one of the reasons is this, and I would make a note of this. This is really important because you'll have flippers approach you and say, I want to flip $1 million house, or I want to flip a $2 million house. Yes, you can do that. Now, if you're in areas of, say, around Vancouver, south of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, some parts of Toronto, not really as much as Vancouver, but certainly around New York City, Long Island, Manhattan, that's considered median prices for those areas. That's why you can flip. In certain parts of San Francisco, you can flip $1.3 million houses because that's, quite frankly, the middle of the road. All right. Now, but here's the danger with flipping in the higher end areas. If it truly is luxury in let's see, Indianapolis, that would be 500,000 and above. Luxury in Dayton would be more like 200 and 250,000 and above. Okay, so it's all relative. The dollars are all relative, but regardless, within the affluent area, that's the luxury homes. Even though you can flip there, the challenge is this: lack of inventory, but also lack of potential buyers on the back end. Not as many people can buy luxury homes, so there's fewer people to flip to. But also, here's the biggie: the days on market is always going to be longer on the upper end neighborhoods, the A neighborhoods, the luxury neighborhoods, which means it's going to take longer for your client's property to sell, which means they go longer stretches of time between big gains in profit, and you go through longer stretches of time before you collect commission checks. So the bottom line is this: we don't operate here. We've done it before. It does work. But quite frankly, I would rather take my capital and turn it over 5 times in a year, flipping homes in median price home range. And once your clients see this, they're going to want to do the same thing. And I'll go back to the school report just briefly to describe what I mean. If you look here, let's just look at $1 million plus, 1 million to 1.5 million. There's not a lot happening there. There's one area where, at the time this was taken, there were 4 homes listed over $1 million, yet only 1 had sold in 90 days. Okay, in some areas 3 were listed and none were sold. All right. Now, as you go up here and you go over here, you'll see there's people selling and people buying. And when your clients are flipping a home, they're providing a product, a house, and they have consumers who are going to be interested in the house. And you want to provide the product that will appeal to the most consumers, and that's why you flip in these areas where there's a lot of activity. And there you see the price range, 150 to 3. That's perfect for this area. Again, in Montreal, that may be 400 to 600,000. Okay. In this case, it was Seneca Valley, which is north of Pittsburgh. 150 to 3 is the sweet spot for flipping. So that's what I'm describing down here, guys. I just want to demonstrate that to you so you see what I'm talking about. That's why you flip in this range here, the B areas. In the C areas, this is where you want to buy rentals typically. Okay. So let me do a quick pause here before I move on. I want to make sure everybody is okay. We'll get into some aesthetics here in a second. I just want to go over to the definition of A, B, and C for the sake of this training program. You've got to have some benchmark. Again, it doesn't matter where you are. It's going to depend on your basically your market data. That's why you create the school report, because it tells you exactly what you need to know. Okay, now when you're looking at these properties, let's just skip past the homework assignment because I'm assuming you guys are doing the homework. You should be anyways, all right? We're going to get in a little bit about the, what type of inventory are you looking for with your clients. But first, let's go over some real quick. Let me go back here for a second. Sorry. Let me go back here. All right. Here's some aesthetics I'm going to give you. All right. For B neighborhoods, and this is going to be true no matter where you are, no matter what market you're in. It doesn't matter where you are. Okay. The price range will fluctuate. However, the characteristics of A, B, and C, even though a B area in Boston will be 400,000 and a B area in Richmond, Virginia will be 200,000, the same aesthetics apply. And here's some aesthetics. For a B area, this is medium price home range, you're going to see a lot more areas, a lot more neighborhoods with professional landscaping, or landscaping that looks really nice because there's a lot more home ownership and they're taking care of the yards. You're going to see more trees, full-grown trees, tree-lined streets, groomed prune trees, trees with flower beds around them, mulch beds around them, things like that. You're going to see a lot more off-street parking. Again, in some parts of the country, like in Washington, D.C. and some of the surrounding areas, even the affluent neighborhoods sometimes don't have off-street parking. But for the most part, you're going to see off-street parking. You're going to see more garages. You're going to see basically typically newer homes, okay, or newer remodeling, better siding, better windows, better roofing, things like that, okay. You're going to see more brick. What you're not going to see is you're not going to see as much on-street parking. You're not going to see as much bare spots in the yards, things like that. That's a typical B area. By the way, just for sake of comparison, back in the A area, your aesthetics obviously going to be stellar. You're definitely going to see manicured, groomed lawns, sometimes privacy gates, privacy walls, things like that. You're never going to see on-street parking in those neighborhoods, right? I mean, you might see a car temporarily parked in the driveway because somebody's in a hurry or they're just visiting, all right? But for the most part, you're going to see bigger yards. You're going to see things like tennis courts and pools and things like that. Okay, that's the A area. Back to the Bs, we just described that to you. You might see some people. In fact, you likely will see people with pools, depending on if you're in California or Florida, or in most places in the South. But for those of you ever curious, all of you American citizens in Canada, we actually have pools, believe it or not, and so we use them, and they're heated. All right. Down in Florida, where I'm also technically a resident, obviously we have lots of pools in Florida, and they're actually cooled. They're cooled in South Florida, okay? But in any case, B neighborhoods, all right? Now down to the C neighborhoods, all right? This is where it takes a little bit more, you've got to develop your instinct, you've got to follow your intuition, and you've got to be more perceptive, okay? So between A, B, and C, between C minus, C, and C plus, the C plus neighborhoods will start to look somewhat like the B areas, okay? You're going to see more landscaping, not necessarily professional. It's going to be a lot of do-it-yourself landscaping, although usually pretty nice. Mulch beds, rock beds, flowers and mulch around bushes and trees. Some off-street parking, but you'll begin to see more on-street parking. You're going to start to see smaller yards. You'll see some yards that are not as well kept as other yards. You're going to see more children playing out front, on the porch, on the sidewalk, toys in the yard, things like that. These are not that these are bad things, guys. It's just a fact of it's social graphics and demographics. It's all public information. It's all accessible to everybody, and you need to understand this because in the case of investors, it's a business. All right, you're helping people make wealth, build wealth and income. So in any case, so back to the C areas. C plus will look more like the B minuses and the Bs, with more cars in the out front, that type of thing. And if in the flat C areas, okay, where you're going to have a pretty good mixture of rentals and still home ownership, you're definitely going to see more cars on the streets. You're going to see possibly older homes. You're going to see older windows, older siding, things like that. You'll see more old school traditional front porches. Okay, and I used to own a bunch of these properties. Now I have big buildings, but I used to own a lot of these smaller properties, tons of them, and they were great because I had great tenants that went to work every day and to make money to pay rent to me. Okay, so now the C minus areas, guys, here's where things begin to change a little bit. Okay, in the C minus areas, a lot of times people are not going to have cars. And if they do, they're typically going to be out front because there's much fewer driveways, okay? You're not going to see hardly any real landscaping. You'll see trees and maybe some green shrubs, evergreen shrubs, but you're generally not going to see as many flower beds and flower gardens and things like that. Okay. Um, Also at this level, the front porches start to disappear. You'll see more stoops, front stoops, covered stoops, things like that. Again, these are just generalizations. I just want to give you some ballpark uh, items that you can write down and use, because I want you to practice this. I want you to go out there, make your observations, and start to develop your instinct. Okay. So at these areas also, you're going to start to see more multi-units, more duplexes, 4-unit buildings, things like that, peppered throughout. Definitely older homes, older aluminum siding, even wood, that old clapboard siding, you're going to see that. You're going to start to see some older slate roofs. Okay, believe it or not, they're still around. Slate roof actually can last easily 100 years, by the way. You know, almost nothing in the way of front yards and maybe small backyards. Okay. And you'll start to see in the backyards more people not being as careful with the upkeep of their yard. You're just going to see a lot more, weeds, sometimes grass isn't cut, and bare spots and things like that. So in any case, when you get to the areas that are below C minus, which do exist, the challenge is this: those are generally going to begin to be more unsafe for you and your clients. And one key characteristics of that is any cars that you do see, a good percentage of them are going to literally be not functioning. You'll see tires are out of air because they haven't been run for a while, expired inspection stickers, things like that. Sometimes you even see them up on blocks. Also, at the lowest of the low ends, you're going to start to see houses that are vacant with windows boarded up and things like that. Now, during the daytime, you're probably fine. I used to go through those neighborhoods. I never felt unsafe, but I can tell you, most of the trouble reported, police reports were reported in those areas. We don't recommend or advocate that you invest in those areas. We don't recommend or advocate that your investors invest in those areas. You certainly can, and you can make money doing it. It's just that there's a lot more risk involved. In fact, I'll just tell you right now, the ratio that we call cap rate, we're going to study that coming up in Module 2. Okay, cap rate doesn't just reflect reward. Cap rate also reflects risk. So in the example here in the book, we talk about a 15% cap rate. Believe it or not, there's parts of the country where you can get 15% cap rates or better. But the challenge is that means you're going to have 15% more gray hair. You have to work a lot harder for that to gain the rewards of that cap rate. In other words, to get your 15% return, you're going to have to work a lot harder to get it, as opposed to a neighborhood that's a standard 10% cap rate. Okay. Or even lower, 5% in most parts of California, or up in Ontario, around specifically Toronto, 5% cap rates. There's areas that don't even have a 5% cap rate. Again, parts of California, Vancouver, there's areas that literally people will buy for negative cash flow. But in any case, back to this: at these lower end areas, you will have higher cap rates, but your clients need to understand that cap rate reflects risk equally to reward. And if they're willing to sacrifice their time, energy, and more money to gain that 10%, more power to them. But I tell you, 10% is only a paper ratio. You almost never really fully achieve 15% return. It's just that's why people a lot of times buy the lower end properties and then they end up getting stuck with them and wish they hadn't. But I've owned them, and you can definitely make money off them. You just have to know what you're getting into. You got to be more careful when you're screening and so forth. Okay. So in any case, let me do a quick pause here and check for questions, because we're going to jump into the next section here in just a moment. Okay, it looks like we got a couple here. Let's see. Whoops. Hang on one second. Okay. All right. Looks like we're caught up on questions. So let me go back here and go back to the end again. I just want to make sure we're okay. Okay, I think we're okay. All right, what I want to do next is I want to show you some online tools that are available to you through the quasi-government entities. And these are ones that your clients are using, okay? These are ones that your clients are utilizing to look for properties on their own. Particularly, they're looking at, in the case of flipping, almost always you're going to be looking, or your client's going to be looking for REOs, short sales, estate sales, things like that. REO is just a technical term, accounting term that the banks use that stands for real estate owned, and that's what they use to describe foreclosures. So once a property has gone through the foreclosure process, typically in most states it goes through what's called a share sale. Share sale occurs because of the back taxes, not because of the bad loan. It's because the taxes weren't paid. So if a property to share sale gets taken back by a bank, they're going to call it REO. That's why you get the term REO. And they're going to attempt to sell these properties. And for the most part, they're going to, the larger ones will go through asset managers and contract with agents just like us. Okay. So let's see here. I want to make sure, let me go back to one question here. Okay, everybody. Yeah, it looks like I'm okay. All right. Sorry, I had to check something on the technology end real quick. All right. Short sales are properties that have not yet gone through foreclosure. Okay. Short sales are pre-foreclosure, and a lot of the banks have been trying to sell those in the last few years, pre-foreclosures through using us agents before they go into foreclosure. And then they started making progress. They actually started getting better at it. Estate sales, that's typically that's where you have a death in the family, and a property is being sold by the heirs of the estate or the children, the siblings of an elderly parent, for example. Sometimes they go through probate because there was not a valid will. Probate makes it more complex, but they're certainly still available for sale. Those are your three main sources of input, typically for flippers, for example. And believe it or not, there's parts of the country that still have foreclosures from the last recession. Okay, and other parts of the country are gearing up for this current shift. And you'll notice that broker price opinion requests have started creeping up again this last year. That's why some areas are having more foreclosures. Okay. In any case, back to what I was going to describe to you. I'm going to show you 4 sites here that your clients are using, and we're going to go through some examples. All right. Now, we've done this before. We do this about 2 or 3 times a year, and it's been a long, long time since we've gone over this. I can't remember the last time we went over this. So I'm going to do it again because we've got a lot of new people on board. I want to show you what's available out there for your clients so that you can use this yourself, become familiar with it, and use it. And when they call you and say, hey, I saw this HUD property for sale, what can you tell me about it? You can go on and research it and get back to them. So let's look at the first one. Okay. Hang on, let me check real quick for questions before I jump over. All right, so far so good. So let me go here, and I'm going to show you the first one. Now, guys, I have to reduce my screen so that I have more of my screen in view. I'm going to reduce the panel so my screen's more available to me. So I'm not going to be able to check questions here for a couple seconds. So hang on one second. All right. This is the HUD Home Store website. Okay. You can see the URL hudhomestore.com. And every one of you has this in your training material. It should be in Module 2. All right. And you can see this is a US only website. Okay. And we'll select, let's just pick, I'm in Illinois right now. So let's pick Illinois. And let's pick Cook County because I think I'm still in Cook County. All right. And let's just go ahead and do a search and see which. I know we're going to get a bunch, but I just want to show you what's possible. You can type in city names. You can type in zip codes. You can type in street names. You can type in price ranges and number of bedrooms and number of bathrooms. All right. But let's do this, and I'll come back. I'm going to show you something else. Let's do a search. Oh, there is no internet connection. Well, that's not good. Wonder why that is. Hang on one second here. Let me go back to the webinar. I hope we're okay. Hang on one second. I want to make sure you guys can actually, let me do this. Let me go back to to my chat box. It looks like you guys are okay. I'm going to open up the question box. Somebody go ahead and let me know that you can still see my screen. If you could type me a message, I greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to check for, because for some reason I had another panel up and it's apparently no longer active. So let me go back and do that. Let's go here. Oops. Network connection. Okay, hang on one second. If you guys are watching this, just hang in there. Advanced options, Wi-Fi settings. Well, I don't need to do any of that. Dial-up, VPN, Wi-Fi, network sharing center. We don't want to do that, I don't think. Let me, yeah, I don't want to do that kind of stuff right now. But let me do this. Let me go back here. Let me go back to the webinar. Hang on one second.